Okay, it started to record. I don't know when it'll come on. Don't know when it'll go off. In Nehemiah chapter number 4, we're going to look at 4 causes of discouragement. And then hopefully we'll find 3 cures for discouragement. In Nehemiah chapter number 4, beginning in verse number 6, it says, "So we built the wall, and all the wall was joined together." Let me give you a little bit of background for those of you who aren't familiar with Nehemiah. God asked Nehemiah to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. They'd been torn down. The city was vulnerable. The city was open. The enemies could come and go as they pleased, and all kinds of things. And God asked Nehemiah to rebuild the walls. He got all the people together. And you know, when you get a project, like a while ago we were saying, you know, starting the wave thing, and when we started with Ruthie and Debbie, and it was really, really... You want to dial her again? It was really exciting. Ruthie and Debbie just, you know, they were really enthusiastic about starting the wave, and then it just died. Nobody else did anything. Put it on speaker and dial her in. That's the way this wall went. Look at the verse. It says, "So we built the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half." They got halfway done with it. And you know, when I used to ride my bike out to Toluca every day, I'd get about halfway out and I would think, you know, you got to go all the way back. Now I'm to the age now in life where I used to just, when I would go hunting, it didn't make any difference where the deer or whatever it was. I just shoot it and go back. Now when I go hunting, I look at the deer and I look to see how far away the truck is before I pull the trigger. You know, and they were really enthusiastic. I mean, Nehemiah had got them all excited about starting the wall and building it up, and he built it up halfway. And you know, the hardest place to keep going is about halfway. You're too far to turn back, and you're too tired to go forward. The first cause of discouragement, in my opinion, is fatigue. Being tired. Sometimes it's to just be totally worn out. I come up here sometimes to preach, and on Sunday morning I get up, and it seems like, well, like last night, Rose was in the emergency room until like 1 o'clock. She didn't get home, and I don't go to bed until she gets home. And getting back up early this morning, and been battling the kidney stone for the last few weeks, and your body just get tired. And it's easy to get discouraged when you're tired. That's why God created the Sabbath. He knew that we needed a day of rest. And all these farmers around in South Valley, North Valley, they give their fields, they rotate their crops, and they give their fields a year of rest. Because if you don't have some time of rest, you're gonna give out. And I don't care how much of a workaholic you are or how dedicated you are to your job, you need some rest. You need some time. Even Jesus himself said, come apart for a little while. Go get you some rest. Jesus had the Mount of Olives where he would go and hang out. He would go and hide out sometimes to get on. And I'm still learning. I'll do my disclaimer again. I have not learned all of this yet, okay? I'm still working on it just like you are. I find myself discouraged sometimes. And this sermon, when I actually put it together, it helped remind me of some of the struggles that I face and some of the things that I have let go in my life. Rest is one of them. I'm thinking really seriously about trying to take up photography again. I was taking a picture yesterday, and Aaron said, "Oh, you start with your cameras again." Yeah, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to do something just for me. I'm gonna try to. As Rose called, I tell Rose I'm going to try to have some fun this year. She says, "You ain't going to have no fun this year. You never have any fun." So I'm going to try anyway. So, but being tired, being fatigued, you get halfway there. I think I told you a story this year. I got back on my bike again, and I was headed out toward Toluca again. You know, that first big hill out there when you get to it. And man, I was blowing wind hard. I was trying to get up that hill, and I got about 50 yards from the top of that hill, and I said, "Man, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to die fat. It's all right." You know, and I stopped. I pedaled as far as I could pedal, and I stopped. And I looked at the top of the hill, and I looked back, and that's all downhill, smooth sailing. I wouldn't have to pedal but twice to get back to town. And I said, "No, I'm going to go." And I got off the bike and I pushed it to the top of the hill and I got back on it and I kept riding. You know, and I praise God for that. But it's easy to get discouraged because of fatigue, because of being tired. You know, you try to go to work and you don't do your best when you're tired. You try to be a parent and you don't do the best when you're tired. You guys with newborns, you know about that, getting up to 2 or 3 hours or getting up several times. Tiffany is just beginning to experience and having to get up at 2 o'clock every morning with Bryson to check his blood sugar because he's just been diagnosed with as diabetic and all that kind of stuff. And that change of scheduling, you know, it's just, when you're tired, you're a little bit snappy, you're a little bit grumpy, you're a little bit, and I don't want to say lazy, but you just you don't feel like doing anything. You don't feel like going that extra mile that you would normally if you weren't so fatigued. So one of the causes of discouragement is being fatigued. The other one, if we keep reading, but it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobias and the Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up and the breaches began to be stopped, they were very angry, they were very wroth. And they all conspired together to come and fight against Jerusalem and to hinder it. The next one is frustration. Sometimes you just get frustrated that things aren't going right. You ever worked on something and no matter what you did, it just would not work out? No. Maybe you're trying to potty train your kid and they just keep going in the kitchen, you know, or you know, maybe you're trying to potty train your husband and he keeps going outside. I don't, you know, whatever. But things become more complicated. And they were building the wall and they built it halfway. Man, their enthusiasm was running overboard. And then they got tired. They got fatigued. And then the frustration set in because all of these people began to antagonize them. They began to because I don't care what you do, if you ever start to become successful at it, you're going to have some opposition. And anytime you try to build something, there's going to be trash. Any of you ever done a building project? And it seems like the trash was just building up. I don't know how in the world me and Rose do it. We're just me and her there at the house, and we got a 2-yard dumpster out the house we fill up every 2 days. I don't know where all that trash comes from. But look down at verse number 10, and it says, the strength of the bearers of the burden is decayed. They were wore out. And there is so much rubbish that we're not able to build a wall. You can't, one of the things, I do a lot of cooking. And Rose, when I cook, when I finish with a pot or a plate or a spoon or whatever, I go ahead and wash it right then. And if I go into a kitchen to cook and there's stuff around, I clean it up first. And then I begin to do what I got to do. I can't work around rubbish. I've been on construction jobs and they'll be stepping all over sheetrock and tripping over 2x4. I got to get the trash out of the way. I got to get all that mess out of the way. And that's what they were talking about here. We can't get the cotton picking wall built because there's so much trash around. They had knocked the walls down, but nobody had cleaned up the trash. And they were trying to rebuild the walls when all the rubbish was in the way. And anytime you try to do something, trash is unavoidable. Anytime you try to build something, anytime you try to cook something, anytime you try to do a lesson plan, you're going to have trash. I was talking to Aaron the other day, and we were talking about trash building up around your house. And when you first do it, not a big deal, just a couple of bags of trash. And then you don't take it out for whatever reason. And then it builds up some more. And then it builds up some more. And then pretty soon you get to the point to where you've let so much build up that you don't feel like moving it then. And you get frustrated. How many of you have ever gotten frustrated with yourself? Trash has to be cleaned up. If it doesn't, it'll become overwhelming. And it'll become frustrating. How many of you, well, I'll use Phoebe. I ain't picked on Phoebe in a long time. Phoebe loves to clean. She lives upstairs. And she just absolutely loves to clean up her upstairs. And so she does it about every 6 months. And then she goes up there, and there's just stuff everywhere, and it's overwhelming. And then you get sidetracked in the overwhelming. You know, and you start, your intentions are great. You go up there and you start picking this up and you start picking that up and you start moving. And then oh man, I didn't know that was buried there. And that's cool. It's been a long time since I've seen that. And you get distracted and you get frustrated. But the trash has to be cleaned up or it's going to take over. And it's the same way in our lives. If we don't take out the trash in our lives, it becomes overwhelming. And it can take over our lives. Whether it's bitterness, whether it's exhaustion, whether it's unforgiveness. Whatever it is, the trash in our lives, we have to take it out. People are always going to disappoint you. Don't dwell on it. People are always going to have something to say about you. Don't worry about it. Sometimes trash is also unrecognizable. Rose throws a lot of my stuff away. That's why I only have the garbage men come every 2 weeks, so I can go out there and dig through it and put it back where it belongs. But it's like the other day. Oh, she was cleaning out the cabinet. Great job, Rose. You're cleaning out the cabinet. First time in 12 years. I'm proud of you, baby.
We've been living there that long. Huh?
But what did you do with my whatever? Well, I didn't know it was any good. Sometimes trash is unrecognizable. And you know what? I recognize trash in somebody else's life a lot of times quicker than I recognize trash in my own life. I'm really quick to identify the trash in your life. But when it comes to the trash in my own life, sometimes it's not recognizable as trash. It may be holding me back. Rose told me the other day that I was a great pastor. Right. And that I have, she said, and I think I got it right. She said, I really want to see you when you just let go and be the man that God has made you to be. I don't know how to do that. That's trash in my life. I don't know how to have self-confidence. I don't know how to tell myself I've done a good job. I don't know how to tell myself I'm cute. I tell you guys I'm cute, but I know I'm lying. But anyway, it's just. I did see a picture of me the other day. It wasn't too bad though. I'm working on it. See, I'm working on it. But it's sometimes trash is. Rose had a conversation with somebody the other day, and she said, I know you don't realize what you're saying or doing, but this is what's going on. I was talking to a young man the other day, and he was talking about he had quit taking his medication. And I said, why? He said, I didn't think I needed it. I said, when you get to the place in your life where you don't think you need your medication, that's when you need it the most. Right. Just like Rose's mom in the emergency room last night. She didn't think she needed her medication. She couldn't afford a $200 medication. Now she can afford a $2,000 emergency room visit. Anyway, whatever. So we got fatigue and frustration and then failure. Failure is the third. Doubting myself. A lot of times I get up here and preach and I want to sneak out the back door while somebody else is praying and go hide. Because I think I've just flat out bombed. I'll do something. I'll write a sermon or I'll write an email. How many of you like me? I love email. I love cut and paste. I love those old days of the correction tapes and erasing. How many of you remember the little white pencil you erased the letters on the typewriter? Yeah, okay. Drove me crazy. I kept 3 or 4 of them big erasers in my pocket all the time because I was never satisfied with what I did. Now I'll write an email and I'll reread it and I'll write it again, write it again, write it again, because I doubt myself. I'll say things to people. I'll send them emails. Like yesterday, I had 2 or 3 people ask for advice on different things. And I'll send them what I think, that I'm supposed to say. And then I'll reread it later and say, man, should I say that? Is that the way I should? Maybe I could have worded that differently. Or, doubting myself. Always doubting myself. Always thinking I'm a failure. How many of you have ever felt like you were a failure at your job? Something came up at your job and maybe you should have known better, or maybe just somebody else did it differently and you came down hard on yourself. Maybe some of you are looking at your marriage, your marriage or your pastorate or your parenting. How many of you have ever felt like as parents, you were just kid, you'd be better off I gave you up for adoption. Go live with the troll under the bridge or something. You'd be a better parent than I am. Or you made a move, and then you second guess yourself about making a move. How many times you guys come from the Philippines? How many times since you've been here have you thought, should we really have done that? Well, Kevin's saying yes and Roselle's saying no. Maybe he's thinking she should have stayed over there. Maybe there's more to this marriage thing. No, just kidding. Just kidding. See, there you go. Second guessing myself. I'll go home this afternoon and did Kevin and Roselle get mad at me because that's... I'm serious. I'm telling you how it is. I get up here and I preach and I look at the videos and I think, oh my God, why did I say that? Why did I do? You know? And I get enough help from people sending me emails telling me all the stuff I shouldn't do. But in self-pity. And I do that. Have a pity party and nobody's invited but me, myself, and I. You know? And we have a party. I mean, we have a good time together. We feel sorry for ourselves, and we cry, and we talk about all of the injustices done to me and myself and I, and we just go on for hours having our little pity party. And then complaining. I was talking to somebody the other day, and he was talking about his kids didn't want to work for him because he was a certain equine animal. And I said, well, quit being one. He said, it's easier said than done. You know, and sometimes we find ourselves and we get into a habit of complaining, and more often than not, we complain to the people who haven't done anything to us. We complain to the people who love us the most and support us the most. When we really ought to be complaining to the ones that need to be complained to. But we're scared to complain to them because they're not safe. They may fire us. Or they may not like us anymore. But our husbands or wives or our kids, we can complain to them because they'll always be there for us. You know? And so our failures, we think we fail a lot more than we really do. How many of you would look at you like I asked? Well, I'm going to pick on Sarah this morning. Not this Sarah, the one behind you.
Oh, poor Sarah, I'm sorry.
I asked her this morning, where do you place your worth? At the dollar store, at the Family Dollar, or at Shields? And a lot of times we don't place our worth high enough. Because God says we're fearfully and wonderfully made. God says before He formed us in the belly, He knew us and He had plans for us. God says that we're the apple of His eye. But sometimes we look at ourselves as the worm in the apple. Sometimes we see ourselves as failures. Because we have made mistakes. There's not a person sitting in this room this morning except Sarah that has not made mistakes. Everybody else has made mistakes except Sarah. And y'all can figure out which Sarah it is. Because we're blessed. We got two Sarahs. Got two Kevins and two Sarahs. And
Two worms in the apple.
two worms in the apple. But sometimes we look at... There's an old saying, you know, if at first you don't succeed, try again. No. If at first you don't succeed, you're normal. Just do it. If you don't ever fail at anything, you've never done anything. I used to work for a guy that was, Lewisburg Plumbing and Heating. And there was an old man there who owned the place. His name was Willis Dupree. And his job interview, when he was interviewing somebody else, what he would do is he would ask them, he said, have you ever flared an oil line without putting the flare nut on there? And if they said no, he wouldn't hire them. Because he knew if you'd been doing it for any length of time, you're going to flare that tube before you put that nut on there. You know, and it's because if you've never made a mistake, you've never done anything. If you've never had a screw up, you've never attempted anything. If you've never failed at anything, what was it, Thomas Jefferson? Which one invented the light bulb? Edison. I knew it was one of them Tommies. And then Ben Franklin, you know, he got out there with his kite. He was just out flying, and his mom told him, go fly a kite, boy, and he discovered electricity. You know, anyway, but he didn't really, because it was in the Egyptian pyramids too. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But if you've never failed at anything, how many of you teachers? How many teachers? A bunch of teachers? You ever felt like when you go home in the afternoon that you wasted your day? Any pastors in here besides me? You ever felt like when after a Sunday sermon, you felt like, man, you just wasted all them people's time? We feel like failures, but they're just temporary setbacks. You keep trying. You keep on pushing. You keep on going. I hear people talking about, well, I took the CDL test and I failed, so I ain't gonna try no more. Or you got the driver's license test. If you fail it, do it again. You know, I don't know how many girls I went through before I married Rose. You know, I failed a whole lot of times to marry her. You just keep trying. You just keep searching. Ruth, you just keep on looking for you. There's a guy out there somewhere. You don't even want one no more.
Not on this planet.
Not on this planet. I agree with her. I was talking to another young lady. I said, there's good guys out there. She said, not very many. I said, well, I have to agree with you about that one. So if you're a good guy out there, and you got a job, and you're not living in mama's basement, send me an email. So I got some ladies out here. And then the last one is fear, because the opposition gets stronger. In these particular guys' case, and I ain't gonna read, y'all can read Nehemiah chapter 4 whenever you're ready. But they done got down to the point now where folks want to kill them. They just said, we're going to kill you. How many of you went to work last week and said somebody was going to kill you? Anybody? Nobody?
One of the infants tried to kill me.
I mean, it does happen.
Oh, I know it happens. But it doesn't happen nearly as often as we like to think it does. I agree it happens. And shut up, Randy. Just stop right there. There you go. I missed all the verses I had written down for this stuff. Oh, well. How do you handle it? Sometimes we blame others, sometimes we self-pity, sometimes we complain. Sometimes we just crawl in the corner and get scared. Sometimes we turn into a recluse and we don't go around people because we're scared of people going to hurt us. Yeah. Sometimes I get to the place, I think I told Rose last week, I'm going to get where I just don't say anything. Because everything I say is misunderstood or mistaken or turned around or whatever. I told her, I said, quit looking for things to get me bent out of shape about. You ever notice sometimes you just walk around in this world looking for things to get aggravated about? You can find them pretty easy. There's aggravating people everywhere. There's aggravating circumstances and situations everywhere. If that's what you're looking for, you can find them. I had a lady here years ago, and she was into demonology pretty hard. And it got where every time she walked around the corner, there was another demon there. Because that's what she was looking for.
Yeah.
I kind of look for angels.
Yeah.
I look for Michael and Gabriel and the rest of that host that's running around there. You know, I know there's demons around. But I know that the Bible says, greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. Yeah. And like somebody said earlier, I don't have to fear what man can do to me. I got God on my side. But they started listening to the wrong people. Look at verse number 12 if you still got your Bible open. And it came to pass when the Jews that dwelt by them came and said unto us 10 times, from all the places which ye shall return unto us, they'll be put upon you. They just kept coming back, time after time after time. And you know, you can barely dig a compliment out of somebody, but if somebody's got a complaint against you, you just hear it over and over and over and over. You got this, and you ain't this, and you ain't doing this, and you ain't doing that. And you know, they say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
They hurt.
Bull. Words cut deep. Words hurt. I've been a fighter and stuff most of my life, and physical pain really don't bother. I live with physical pain every day. I live with kidney stones and replaced joints, and so physical pain I've kind of gotten used to. But you send me an email and said, you know, I really didn't like what you preached today, and that's going to bother me all week long. I didn't like the advice you gave me for free. Oh, I'm saying too much now. Cure. Let's move on to the cure. How do we fix it? Well, what he did is he reorganized what was not working. See, you may be doing the right thing. You might be just doing it the wrong way.
Yeah.
They were building the wall. But what he did is he took half of them and set them as guard, and half of them he had building, and then he switched off. They were doing the right thing, they were just doing it the wrong way. And so reorganize whatever's not working. In verse number 13 it says, "Therefore I said in the lower places behind the wall, and on the higher places I even set people after their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows." He said, okay, folks want to attack you, folks want to kill you, we'll have a guard set up. We'll have this group work on the wall, and we'll have this group protect you. Because remember, we got discouraged because of the fear and the fatigue and the failure and frustration. And so we're going to set up a guard to where that stuff doesn't bother you and that stuff doesn't hinder you, so you won't be discouraged while you're trying to rebuild the wall, because we got a guard set up to take care of you. And then at the other time, they'll switch out on you because nobody gets tired of doing the same thing all the time. And so you don't get tired of building the wall day after day after day after day after day. How many of you ever tried to do something day after day after day after day after day? 43 years now, I've been working on this marriage, you know. But it is fun now. Anyhow. But we got to reorganize what's not working. If the way you talk to your spouse is not giving you cuddles and hugs, figure out a different way to talk to her. That and y'all are hearing in the background, that's my wife, by the way.
I'm looking at him.
I know what you're doing. You see, my love language is acts of service, and her love language is words. And I'll go in there and clean up her kitchen and then ask her, why'd you make such a big flipping mess? So I just defeated that whole labor exercise. But I told you I haven't mastered this. I have never claimed to be the perfect pastor. If you don't like it, don't listen. I mean, you know, it's as simple as that. I just do the best I can. But then we got to refocus on God. Sometimes we get to focusing on the world and the neighbors and the things that are going on around us, when we need to realize we're building the wall for God. And we need to focus on Him. Verse number 14. "And I looked and rose up and said unto the nobles and to the rulers and to the rest of the people, Don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses." Fight for them. Fight for your marriage. Put as much effort into your marriage as you put into your deer hunting. Put as much effort into your marriage as you put into your... let me see. I was trying not to embarrass Rose, but anyway. Into whatever it is you like to do. I told Rose the other day, I said, I'm sorry your life is so miserable. Every time she gets home, she's got to go somewhere else. So she spends half of her day trying to get away from me. She acts like she loves me to death, but then when she gets around me, she's got to go shopping or something. I'm just playing, y'all. But refocus on God. In Jonah chapter 2 and verse number 7, it says, "When my soul fainteth within me, I remember the Lord." Jonah was at the bottom of the ocean in the side of a belly of a fish. And then he finally said, oh, then I remembered the Lord. And ain't that just like us? We wait until we're at the bottom before we remember God. And then resist the discouragement. Verse 14, last part says, "And fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, and your wives." Resist. And James tells us to resist the devil, and he'll flee from us. So we're all going to get discouraged. We're all going to get fatigued. We're all going to get frustrated. We're all going to feel like a failure at times, and we're all going to be fearful at times. But the cure for it is to reorganize whatever's not working, to refocus on God, and resist the discouragement. You know you can talk yourself out of being discouraged? Not very many of us do it. We talk ourselves into being discouraged. Because we can come up with all kinds of good reasons for us to be discouraged. We have to remember that we're on a battleground, not a playground. We're in a fight. The devil don't like you. I know you think you're the sweetest, most lovable thing on the world's planet, and not a creature that God ever created could ever dislike you. But the devil don't like you. Especially if you're serving God. Discouragement is our choice. That hit me. When I wrote that down on that piece of paper, that hit me like a ton of bricks. Discouragement is my choice. If I get discouraged, it's because I've allowed myself to get discouraged. I've talked myself into getting discouraged. And I'm a pretty good talker. I was a good salesman. I can sell waterfront property to people in Arizona. And so I can pretty easily talk myself into being discouraged. But if I got as good at talking myself out of discouragement as I am talking myself into discouragement, there's no telling what I could do or be. I didn't cover a whole lot of the verses that I had written down, but did you get the general idea of what I'm trying to say? Okay with that? So I can quit now? Oh, Lord. I don't know why people watch this stuff.